I hope that you are having an amazing day so far. So for today, we will be doing our grade 8 English lesson on sentences, fragments, and run-ons. So we'll be doing our grade 8 English lesson on sentences, fragments, and run-ons. And before we start with our lesson on sentences, fragments, and run-ons, we are going to log into aplusstudents.ca. We're going to log in with our username as well as our password. And then we're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 8. And then we are going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of sentences, fragments, and run-ons. So our chapter is sentences, fragments, and run-ons. Our subject is language arts, which is English, grade 8, and the lessons that we will be focusing on today under the chapter of sentences, fragments, and run-ons is it a complete sentence or fragment? And is it a complete sentence or a run-on? And our tutorial lesson we are doing on aplusstudents.ca. So our tutorial lesson we're doing on aplusstudents.ca. All right, so now we are going to start. Let's do this. Do it like this. All right, so a sentence. Let's start with a sentence. So a sentence is a group of words that forms a complete thought. So a sentence, it is a group of words that forms a complete thought, right? And with having a complete thought, it has both subject and verb. So a sentence is a group of words that forms a complete thought, and it has both a subject and it has a verb. And if we think of an example, right? Of a sentence fragment, or specifically of a sentence that that forms a complete thought, and then we will say that, remember, with our example, a sentence, it needs to have a subject as well as it needs to also have a verb. If it does not have either one of that, then it is not a complete thought, right? So we need to basically put your sentence needs to have a subject, right? Which is either someone, which is the person or thing that the sentence is about, and the verb is the action that the subject does. All right. And if we look at an example, right, then we can say John, let's say John runs a race, right, or runs in a race. Let's put in a race, right? So which means that we have John, which is our subject, and we have runs, which is our verb, right? So that means that this is a complete thought. It is a complete sentence because it has both subject as well as a verb. Remember, if it does not have a subject, if we just say runs in a race without the subject, and then this is not a complete thought. Or if we just say, if we just mention, for example, a subject without the verb, and then that is also not a complete a complete thought. Your sentence, in order for it to form a complete thought, needs to have a subject as well as a verb. All right. And then we have sentence fragments. Sentence fragments, right? And a fragment sentence or sentence fragment is a group of words that does not express a complete thought. So a sentence fragment is a group of words that does not, like it's not at all, express a complete thought. So with a sentence fragment, it is easily it's usually missing either a subject or it is missing a verb or a helping verb. And if we look at an example of a fragment, right? Remember we made the previous sentence where we said John runs in a race. So if we just say runs in a race, right? Then this is a sentence fragment. There is no subject at all. So it's basically you ask yourself who runs in the race. Because there's no subject. So a fragment, a sentence fragment, right? It's a group of words that does not express a complete thought. So it's either missing a subject or it is missing a verb or helping verb. Another example is knows the answer. Knows the answer. So knows the answer is definitely a sentence fragment. Because now you're asking yourself, who knows the answer? All right. So with a sentence fragment, we said that it's either missing a subject or it's missing a verb. And we made two examples where the subject is missing, but the verb is still there. So once again, a sentence, it's a group of words that forms a complete thought, and it has both subject and it has a verb. And then we have a sentence fragment, right? And this is a group of words that does not express a complete thought. And this usually is either missing a subject or it's missing a verb or helping verb. All right. So we're going to come back to this before our lesson ends. But for now, can we go to a+students.ca? All right, so we're moving over to a+students.ca. And remember, um, we are working on a+students.ca. So you are going to either log in or recap or either now in your spare time when you want to maybe go over our lessons again. There we have the chapter lessons as well as the grade, and then you can just go to a+students.ca and then you will be able to follow. All right. So now we're going to the first one, which is it a complete sentence or a fragment? So we said a sentence is a group of words that form a complete thought. And when it comes to a subject, a sentence that is a group of words that forms a complete thought, then it has both subject as well as a verb. So in order for a sentence to be considered as a sentence, right, that forms a complete thought, it needs to have both subject as well as a verb. And an example of a sentence is, my friends walk along the path. So my friends, they walk along the path. And in that sentence, we have my friends, which is the subject, and walk along the path. It's either the noun and the verb phrase, something, but walk or walk along the path. And then we're going on to a sentence fragment. And a fragment is a group of words that does not express a complete thought. And we made an example of knows the answer. Because remember, we said a sentence fragment, it does not express a complete thought, so it's either missing a subject or it's missing a verb. And we made it, and we said knows the answer. It's like asking yourself who knows the answer. So this is a fragment. Another example is the bright red car. So the bright red car, it has a subject this time around, but now it is missing a verb. So as you can see with sentence fragments, right, it does not express a complete thought, and it is a sentence. I'm sorry, and it is either missing um a subject or it's missing a verb. All right, so now we need to say which is a sentence fragment. A long pleated skit with a floral print. And then we have another one that says news reports alerted everyone in the area to the approaching tornado. So we now need to say which one is a sentence fragment. And if we choose the correct one, the one that is a sentence fragment, that says a long pleated skirt with a floral print, then it means that this one is a sentence fragment because it does not have a verb. It is missing the verb. So a long pleated skirt with a floral print only has basically subject or nouns, right? But it does not have, or it's missing a verb. So a long pleated skirt with a floral print. We need to say if it's a fragment. Never spoke of Mary's secret to anyone except for her. Or is it nighttime leg cramps frequently occur in calf muscles? We need to choose the correct one, which is a sentence fragment. So if we choose the correct one, which is a fragment, and then we will choose never spoke of Mary's secret to anyone except for her. So that is a sentence fragment. So, which is a complete sentence? And remember, we said a sentence, right? It expresses or forms a complete thought. So, a sentence, it forms a complete thought and it has a subject and it has a verb. Do we choose the first one, which is wouldn't be able to produce red blood cells without a skeleton, or Carlin always enchants audiences with the raw emotion in her performances? So we need to choose the correct one that is a sentence, a complete sentence, a complete thought. All right, so basically, Karen always enchants audiences with the raw emotion in her performances. All right, let's go on to our test. So now, if we look at the first one says, which is a sentence fragment? News reports alerted in the area, everyone in the area to the approaching tornado, or wipe the sweat from her brow while spring across the fish line. All right. So basically, if we look at this, right, here it says a sentence fragment, right? We had to choose a fragment. And we said the first one, which is news reports alerted everyone in the area of approaching. So which means that this is incorrect because there we have approaching, alerted, sorry, as well as the news report. So that is already expressing a complete thought. We have to say what's a fragment, which is wipe the sweat from her brow after sprinting across the finish line. So if you get anything wrong, whether it is tricky or something, you can go to where the correct answer is, copy it, send it to us, and you'll get 100 bonus points. We need to say which is a complete sentence. Electric eels stun prey. A complete sentence. Remember, complete sentence has both a subject and it has a verb. So, which is a complete sentence? Is it electric eels stun prey with an intense electrical charge? Or Pamela fulfilling her dream of hiking to the top of Mount. So electric eels stun prey with an intense electric damage, or Pamela fulfilling her dream of hiking to the top of Mount St. Helens. So we need to select the complete sentence. Is it electric eels stun prey with an intensive electric charge, or Pamela fulfilling her dream of hiking to the top of Mount St. Helens. We need to choose the correct one. All right. So, yeah, once again, a complete sentence, right, is the first one, which is electric eels, right? It's stun prey. And there we have electric eels, which is our subject, and stun is our verb. We need to select a complete sentence, right? In August 2012, the Curiosity rover landed on Mars. And my parents' business flourishing thanks to online advertising. So we need to select a complete sentence. In August 2012, the Curiosity rover landed on Mars. Or do we choose my parents' business flourishing thanks to online advertising? My parents' business flourishing thanks to online advertising. So we need to select the correct one that is showing a complete sentence. Do we say the first one, which is in August 2012, the Curiosity rover landed on Mars? Or my parents' business flourishing thanks to online advertising? We need to say if it's a complete sentence. Remember, we said a complete sentence has both subject and a verb. All right, so let's quickly choose the second one. So we want the second one. Let's go with the second one, right? So the second one, it is not the second one, right? It is the first one because here it says the Curiosity rover landed on Mars. So landed being our verb and the Curiosity rover being our subject. But don't worry, sorry. If you do get anything wrong or you make a mistake or it can be confusing, then what you do is you go and get the you scroll down up until you get the correct answer, copy it, send it to us, and you will get 100 bonus points. A complete sentence. We need to say which is a complete sentence that has a subject as well as a verb. It has either someone or something that they're talking about, as well as the action that it does. At dawn, the sailors hoisted the cargo onto the ship. Or the undercover agent still investigating that strange case. We need to say which one is a complete sentence. Is it at dawn the sailors hoisted the cargo onto the ship? Or the undercover agent still investigating that strange cases? And the meaning of hoisted, if you now look at that word hoisted, hoisted is to raise something. It's almost like by the ropes, pulling the ropes and the pulleys, and then that is how they are hoisting the cargo onto the ship. It's like they're pulling it up with ropes and then they're putting the cargo onto the ships. So it's basically like to raise it up. So at dawn, the sailors hoisted the cargo onto the ship, or the undercover agent still investigating that strange case. Which one do you think is a complete sentence? Option one or option two? All right, let's choose option one, right? Option one, because the sailors being the subject and hoisted being the verb, right? So the sailors, we are talking about the sailors and what they are doing, they're doing the action of hoisting the cargo onto the ships, which is a sentence fragment. It is either missing a subject or it's missing a verb. Aesop's fable present important life lessons, often in a humorous way, or Irene already leaving to catch the plane for a week-long cruise to Porto Vallata. We need to say which one is a fragment. Aesop's fables present important life lessons, often in a humorous way. Or Irene already leaving to catch the plane for a week-long cruise to Porto Vallata. Vallata. So we need to say which one is a sentence fragment. It's either missing a subject or it is missing a verb. In this case, both of it has subjects. A fragment. All right. So if we choose the correct one, and then we will say that it is it says here Irene already leaving to catch the plane for a week-long cruise, and Aesop's fable presents important life lessons. So here it says Irene is already leaving, right? So it's not necessarily that saying that she is specifically doing that action, right? It's saying that she is still on her way. All right, let's go to the next one, which is a sentence or a run on. So we said a complete sentence, right? It is a group of words that forms a complete thought, and it has a subject as well as a verb, right? So that is a sentence. So a sentence is a group of words that complete a thought. So in order for us to have a sentence or to show that a sentence it completes a thought or forms a complete thought, then it needs to have a subject as well as a verb, right? If it's either missing a subject or it's missing a verb, and then it means that it is a sentence fragment, right? And it does not express a complete thought. But now we also have, but now we also have run-on sentences, right? And a run-on sentence, it's made up of two independent clauses that are joined without end punctuation or with just a comma. So it's basically two independent clauses that were supposed to stand on its own, right? But it was now joined to make one sentence. And that is why we call it a run on sentence, because it was supposed to be independent clauses on its own, but yet it was joined to make one sentence. But now we call it run on sentences. And examples are I knocked on the door, it opened, right? The same with it started raining, comma, we ran inside. So the first one does not even have an end punctuation, only at the end of the sentence, which means that this is one full sentence, right? And the same with the second one. This is a full sentence. However, they even have a comma there. But if we now try to fix that run on sentence, right, then we can say, I knocked on the door, right? Then we must put a full stop. So which means that we are going to separate it here where I put the line. Same with here. So if we separate the run-on sentence, or we fix the run-on sentence, then it means that we will say, I knocked on the door, right? So that is the first independent clause, and the second one says it opened. So which means that this can stand on its own as well as the sentence, because I being our subject, knocked being our verb, right? Or knocked on the door being our verb. And then the same one, it being our subject, opened being our verb. So this is actually two independent clauses, right, that should have been standing on its own. However, it was just joined without end punctuations. Like in the first one, there was no end punctuations in the middle, only at the end of the subject, the sentence. The second one, it started raining, we ran inside, right? And there it has a comma. But if we now fix that sentence, then we can say it started raining, full stop. We ran inside, full stop. And this is two independent clauses that should have been standing on its own, right? It being our subject started being our verb. We being our subject, ran being our verb, right? However, what they did was, that is why we call it a run on sentence, right? Because it's not a complete sentence as yet. We are running on the sentence because it's like putting two independent clauses in one sentence, right? And it's only joined by having a comma. It's not even joined with a coordinating conjunction. Just a comma or no in punctuation, meaning either no full stop, no comma, no nothing, right? And this is what we call run-on sentences. And if we want to fix a run-on sentence, then we can fix it the way I did it when I was, like, for example, I knocked on the door, full stop. It opened, full stop. As well as it started raining, full stop. We ran inside, full stop. That is how we fix a run-on sentence. You can also fix a run-on sentence by rewriting it as a compound sentence, right? So by rewriting it as a compound sentence. So the first way of fixing it is by fixing it this way, where we put the end mark, we add the end punctuation after the first sentence. There we have the first sentence and we have our end punctuation as well as the second one. And then we capitalize the second one before we add our end punctuation. But now if you also want to fix a run-on sentence, then you can rewrite it as a compound sentence. And a compound sentence, it is made up of two independent clauses that is joined by a comma and a coordinating conjunction, such as and, but, or, so. And for example, I knocked on the door and it opened. And there we have our coordinating conjunction. Yes, so it's way better to either fix it with the coordinating conjunction. Or it started raining, so we ran inside. So you can either fix a run-on sentence by either adding a conjunction, but if there's no conjunction and you're just adding the comma, or no comma and you're just joining that two words, then we call that run-on sentence, because that is two independent clauses that should have been standing on its own. It should have been standing on its own, but yet it was written, both of that independent clauses was written in one sentence without any proper end punctuations or without even writing it as a compound sentence. All right, so that is a run-on sentence. So we said a sentence is a group of words that forms a complete thought, and it has both subject and verb, right? All right. We need to say which is a complete sentence. The waiter ladled potato leek soup into our bowls. Ladled. Or the Australian man designs yachts. He races them in international events. So basically, our complete sentence is the waiter ladled potato leek soup into our bowls. All right, let us go and do our test before we end our lesson. So we're going to now say which is a run-on sentence. Remember, we said a run-on sentence, it's where we have two independent clauses that is basically written into one sentence without an end punctuation, or it is not written as a compound sentence. Cassie is an adept skier. She has trained for many years. Or red-green color blindness affects far more men than women. We need to say which one is a run-on sentence. Is it option 1 or option 2? So Cassie's an adept skier. She has trained for many years. Or red-green color blindness affects far more men than women. A run-on sentence. A run-on sentence. It is where there is two independent clauses within a sentence. If we read our sentences, right, like look at the first one says, Cassie is an adept skier. She has trained for many years. And if we look at the run-on sentence, then we will choose option 1. Because the second one is straightforward. Red, green, color blindness, it affects far more men than women. So the run-on sentence is option 1. So well done. So yes, option 1 is our run-on sentence. We now need to say which one is a complete sentence. A leap year typically occurs every 4 years. Or let's spruce up the room. New drapes would be an improvement. Is it option 1 or option 2? A leap year typically occurs every 4 years. Or let's spruce up the room. New drapes would be an improvement. All right, let's try option 1. And option 1 is correct. So well done. We have our subject there as well as our verb. We need to also say which is a complete sentence. Multiplying fractions and decimals isn't hard. I can show you how. Or the suspect forfeited his right to a trial by jury. Option 1 or option 2. Multiplying fractions and decimals isn't hard. I can show you how. Or the suspect, forfeited his right to a trial by jury. And if we select a complete sentence, then we will select option 2, because the first one is a run-on sentence. This macaroni dish tastes rather bland. Pass the salt, please. Or lesions flourish in some of the most extreme environments on earth. We need to select a complete sentence. Is it option 1 or option 2? And if we select the complete sentence, we will select option 2, because option 1 is a run-on sentence. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on sentences, fragments, and run-ons. We said a sentence, it expresses a complete thought, and it has both subject as well as a verb. A sentence fragment, it does not express a complete thought, and it's either missing a subject or it's missing a verb. And in a run-on sentence, it is two independent clauses that is within a sentence without any end punctuation, or it just has a comma in the middle. And if we fix a run-on sentence, we can either fix it by putting our end point, and then in our basically putting our end point after the first independent clause, and then starting the second independent clause with capital letter. Or we can fix it by writing it as a compound sentence and then putting a comma in the middle, as well as a coordinating conjunction, which is and, but, or so. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson, grade 8. Thank you very much for being interactive. Thank you very much for joining the class and for answering. I really hope that you are going to have an amazing day further. Goodbye.